and then I'll record the calls during the demo and make sure they all get answered at the end. So without further ado, I'll introduce Brett from Boberdoo.
Hi, welcome everyone. So, as you know, ping post is a kind of a big thing here with the lead industry in the last couple of years. Using a Boberdoo system can take full advantage, both buying these leads on a ping post basis, and then also turn around and selling them on a ping post basis. So, to start off, we're going to look at the first side of that, which would be setting up what are called vendors, or someone that's selling you leads in the system, setting them up so that they can sell you leads on a ping post basis. So obviously the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to want to set up their account. The settings tab, there's your manage vendors accounts, and this is where you just basically create their account with their basic contact information. And what that does is that gives them a login capability. So if they want to, they can log in to the back end, see what leads they've submitted, see the status of each of those leads, run a couple different reports as well. So it's very simple. You're filling out the company name, their contact information, and you click save. And then once that happens, it creates their account here. The next step is creating what's called the SRC value. And what this is your main tracking variable. So every lead that comes into the system has to have this SRC value, and this is how you can determine exactly where that lead came from just by looking at it. So the next question you would have at this point would be, is this vendor selling you leads on a static basis? So every lead they send you, you're paying them $10 per lead or $5 per lead. This is the static price that doesn't change. Or alternatively, you can set them up as dynamic pricing, meaning you're going to return a different price depending on the lead. So very first thing to do, click Add New Source, the SRC, and that's really for your reference only. It's however you want to be able to identify leads coming from this particular company. So most of the time, if it's, say, you're buying leads from company ABC, you could, in theory, then have the source name, be ABC. Or it's really however you want it to be identified in the system. This information is never passed to the buyer side, so you don't have to, quote unquote, mask these values at all. So once you fill in the name, you have the option then to select the vendor company. And what that does is allows that vendor to see leads in their login that they submit through that SRC name. After this, there's really only two very important fields you need to worry about here. If they're static, meaning you're paying a flat rate per lead, you're going to put that flat rate here in the lead cost. So if it's $5, you're going to put in here $5. Oops. And that value then is used when you're also then running profit reports at the end of the week or end of the month, whenever it may be. It takes that cost and compares it to, obviously what the lead sells for to determine that profit. So if they are on a static basis, you create them and put their static cost in and click Add New. Now let's say that you want to set up one that isn't static, you want to set up as dynamic. Then you're going to do the same exact thing. Click Add New. Click here to enter in their SRC name. I'm just going to name it 123 example. The lead cost you're going to leave at 0 since it's going to change for every time a lead comes through. How you flag it as being a dynamic is this option here, which is allow using return best price parameter in the ping post API. You're going to want to set that to yes, or yes but sold non-exclusively. So setting this to yes means that you're going to allow the vendor to submit in this special field name, And what that does is that triggers the system to make sure it returns back that dynamic price offer. So kind of the flow of what happens is the vendor sends in the lead hits your system, it's going to look at all your different buyers that are eligible to take that lead, and to not get ahead of myself, let's just say that the price that's the best offer is $10. You then have the option to set a margin, which is basically your cut that you want to take out of it. It could be a percentage or it can be a flat dollar amount. Let's say it's a flat dollar amount of $2 you want to take out as the margin. So if the highest bidder is $10 minus that $2 margin, you would then return on the ping response back to that vendor, yes, I'll take that lead for $8. It is then up to the vendor, if they accept that $8 offer, to then send the post through. If they decide they want that offer, they send the post through, the lead comes through and it sells to that particular buyer for $10. Then you bought it for $8 and sold it for $10. That $2 that you make is that $2 margin that you set. So here's where you can set the margin, either an absolute value, so you can put in, like I said, $2, or if you want it to be a percent value, you can enter in the percentage here as well. So if you have dynamic buyers who are going to be also dynamically bidding on leads, you probably want to go the route of the percent, so that way you're taking out cuts that are within proportion to what the offers are. So that's the main difference between the static and the dynamic. The static, you set the cost. Dynamic, you flag to allow them to use the return best price parameter. Same thing, you click add new, and what that does is create you in the system. So that's the second step of setting up a vendor. You create their vendor account, you create their SRC. The last thing that they need is the posting specs. And these posting specs are basically instructions that they need to follow so they can lead the system. So and then API in here for ping post lead. So when you click on ping post lead, it's going to then post the types that you have in your system. And then once you click on the name, it's going to then display the appropriate specs. A quick link after you click on it. So that way, when you're setting up a new vendor, you give them these things essentially. You give them this link to the posting specs. That means they don't have to log in and do anything to get the specs. You can just give them this link, and they click on it, and they can see everything that we're seeing here. Their API key, which is in their vendor account that we created, and their SRC value, which is that main tracking variable. Once they have those things, any vendor can then send leads into your system as long as they have those 3 items that are needed. So this specs page highlights then what's required for them to send on the ping, what's required for them to send on the post, which ones have certain special allow values that must be needed, and also an example. Submitting HTTP post or GET, they can also submit L, and add it here as well. If I scroll all the way down here, we'll get down to the responses. And this is what I briefly alluded to before, where the vendor sends in the ping, and if they're dynamic, we're going to return back that price offer in the response. So here's an example where you can see what that looks like. So this would be an example where they sent in the ping, and let's say it matched to a buyer for $30, and you have a $5 margin. It would return back here, price $25. And then, to reiterate, it's always up to the vendor at that decision. Maybe they're pinging to you, but they're also probably pinging to other people as well. So they're probably taking in all those bids as well, and then seeing who has the best offer for them. So if you ever return back hey, I offered $25 for this lead, why didn't the post come through? Most likely it is they didn't accept that bid, or they got a bid that's higher from someone else they were selling to. On the post, it's going to return back matched on that response, meaning that you purchased that lead from them, you owe them that lead or was returned, and that's offering the ping response. Setting up the vendor things, let's jump right into the flip side of it, which would be setting up any buyer accounts so you can accept leads on a ping post basis. So most of the time, partners who have a ping post system will have custom delivery that they need to have the pings and posts sent into. So just like we were grabbing the posting specs to give to the vendor, the buyer side will essentially have to do the same thing for you. So they would give you the posting specs. You know, here's the required fields. This is what needs to get sent on the ping. This is what needs to get sent on the post. You know, this is dynamic pricing, so we're going to return back a price response. So those deliveries can be set up by the boberdoo team through the custom deliveries wizard, or if you have someone that's capable on your end of setting those up, those can be controlled and managed by you as well. So when a lead comes into the system, let's even bypass the whole beginning saying it's ping post. Let's just say any lead in your system, you're looking to then fire that out to a buyer on a ping post basis. They can either have the pricing be dynamic or they can have the pricing be static, just like we looked at before on the vendor side. If they are static pricing, meaning they're going to bid the same amount for every lead, that price that is pulled is then determined in the lead filter set. So when I go to filter set and I click a new one for this lead type, I get this pop up here. So if they're a static pricing, that static price they're going to be bidding will be whatever price you put in here. So this example would be $10. Same thing with the vendor side. You can also put a margin here at the filter set level. So you can pull out the margin based on who it is selling to. Similarly, you can do the same thing, either a fixed flat dollar amount, say $2, or you can do variable pricing to determine a percentage value for the cut you want to take. With the margins being set here, it gives you the ability to make some different matrices where you can determine how much margin you want to take out based on the dynamic bid that they return back. So let's say that they are dynamic in this situation. We're going to change it to 0. They're not static, so you don't have to put a price of what they're paying in here. And then you're going to put in here that it's always going to start at 0, the max price, let's say $10. And what this means is if they return back a dynamic bid, which is in between 0 and $10, I'm going to take out a 10% margin. Then I can click a plus sign here. It's going to add a new line. It automatically adds it 1 cent over the max price that you put. So now if I'm going to say if the dynamic bid they return back is between $10.01 and $25, well then I'm going to take out a 20% margin. And you can keep on clicking the plus sign to set these different margins based on the different dynamic bids. But let's say you wanted to cap it between 0 and 10, you can take out 10%. Between $10.01 and $25, I'm going to take out 20%. And then this default margin means any price that's not within what we set here. So meaning if they return a bid higher than $25, well then I want to take out a 30% margin. So that's the main difference for setting up a filter set for your buyers, whether they're static or dynamic, and then the profit margins set appropriately for those. So again, static, you're just going to input the lead price here. If they're dynamic, it's going to be 0, and then the price is going to be determined based on that custom delivery that has to get built. And what that does is, you know, when you ping the lead out to that buyer, they then return back either, yeah, I'm going to take that lead, and here's what I offer, or no, I don't want that lead. If they say they want that lead, they're going to return a price offer that they're willing to pay for it. And that's what the price is used then in determining who the lead's going to sell to if you're routing it based on highest bidder. So just a little bit more about this. Usually if someone is doing static pricing, like we said, $10, most of the time in that case you're probably going to do a fixed margin. You can obviously still do a percentage, but since the price isn't changing, it's going to be taking out the same margin every time. So in that situation, most people will just have the fixed margin set to that. So once you set up the filter set, you click Save, and this adds that filter set in the system. So now that we kind of have that first side set up with the vendor, we're looking at the buyers now selling it. How the flow then works is like this. So the vendor pings in the lead with only the partial information. Usually no contact information of any kind is sent through. Most of the time it is just the main fields that are your filters and maybe some additional ones on top of that. So that way the system can then determine who's eligible to get that lead based on the filters that are submitted in the ping. So the ping comes through, let's say it's from zip 60654, it has excellent credit rating, so on and so forth. The ping enters the system. The system then fires that ping out to everyone that matches it. All right, who takes this state? Who takes the zip code? All the other information submitted in the ping. Who takes that? And it's going to then attempt to match to those, and it's going to grab the price offers from each different buyer that's eligible to match to it. And that price offer is either going to be that flat dollar amount we look at the filter set here, or it's going to be that dynamic one that is returned back differently for each one. So let's say ping comes through, it matches to 5 different buyers. One bids 20, another one 15, 10, 7, $5. Your system can be set up to then be routed based on the highest bidder. So in that case, it would then take that highest bid amount. Then it would look at the margin. Is the margin set at the filter set level? Is it set at the source level? Is it set at both? It's then going to take out that margin and then offer that price minus the margin back to that vendor. That vendor is then going to decide whether they want to sell the lead for that amount. And if so, if they then post the lead through, and the system will then attempt to match to that highest bidder. So when we look on the leads page here, no, that wasn't it. So when you're looking on the leads page here, for anyone that fires out to your buyers, you can always click on the Show Lead Log, and this will always display the raw responses that your buyers are returning back if they have one of those ping post deliveries. So you can see then who the ping matched with, who was eligible for it, who has dynamic pricing that's returned back in their ping response, and then you can see then the margin that's taken out, and then ultimately the final bid price that was returned back to the vendor. So with this whole flow, it really allows you to then both, if you're just buying leads and then routing them to yourself, it allows you to return back different offers to your vendors that are selling you the leads, which ultimately allows you to really get your bid price down, what you're paying per lead. Most people are really kind of turning to the ping post model. We've seen a couple examples where we've had clients who were on a static, just regular direct post, and they had a vendor come to them, hey, if you come and start doing ping post, we would be able to get your lead prices down. And that's how kind of this really started, a huge swing of the ping post industry. It allowed, like I said, to get those lead prices down, since they can essentially be bidding on each individual lead rather than, hey, if it's from this state, it's going to be $10. If it's from this state, it's going to be $12. This allows each lead to be sent through and individually bid on and looked at to determine, what's being paid for it. Scott, still there?
Yep. All right. So that is the ping post process at a pretty high level. There's obviously a lot of different options and use cases that we could go through. I think that our goal here today was just to kind of shed some light onto the ping post process, especially as to how it is in the boberdoo system, and the different ways in which you can utilize it. But at the end of the day, the boberdoo system gives you the flexibility to bring in both web leads from both static sellers and dynamic in the same lead type, and then to sell leads both statically and dynamically, depending on who your buyers are. So if you are somebody with a lot of supply and less demand, ping post would help you increase your coverage through setting up several wholesalers, and then vice versa. If you are somebody with more demand than supply, you can go out and achieve and get additional leads without necessarily increasing your marketing spend. If you're a lead business, you know that any leads you buy in a ping post process, you're going to sell profitably. And if you're an actual lead buyer, it gives you a lot more flexibility and control over the leads that you purchase, how many of them, and then the drastic situation that I always use, which is, what happens if your sales reps have not closed a lead all day? It's probably wise to increase your bids and try to get more leads to get some deals on the table. And then vice versa. If your phone lines go down for the day, you can simply pause your accounts, and therefore you wouldn't be returning bids for those leads that would come in and otherwise hit the floor. So there are a lot of different applications to that. So I think now's a good time to open it up for questions. You feel free to either put them across the chat, or Brett, if you want to release the audio, feel free to just say them aloud.
Well, this is Bob Draper, and I have a question about the putting in bids. Is this all web-based access? Is there no other support for C# or any other language other than web?
We do have that are available, and we have sets.
Sorry, but you're cutting out.
Sorry about that. Hold on 1 second. All right, how about now? Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yep, perfect.
All right, so we do have all these different API specs that come standard with the system. There is one for updating filter sets. So if you didn't log in to go through and change the bids, you could call one of these APIs and updated it. Is that kind of what you're looking for, or something more and more?
Well, that's informational on what fields are available, but it doesn't say how to enter these messages into your system. I mean,
so you would have to submit these through an HTTP post GET request.
Okay.
And that would then update inside the system for whatever you enter in here. So you would have to put in, which particular buyer it's for, which filter sets it's for, and what price you want it updated.
Yeah, so you're only doing HTTP.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we had a couple more questions that were Skyped over. One question was about the Boberdoo app for iPhone. So that is an app that is specifically for lead buyers, and it is essentially a push notification of their partner admin. So this the system is built in responsive design, so you can access it as long as you have an internet connection. But for those iPhone people, that app is available. It is a Boberdoo app, and not an admin for you guys. It's just for the lead buyers.
Correct. So just to add to that is there's two versions. There's a paid version and a free version. And as Scott said, it is only for your lead buyers. Allows them to have access to go in. With the free version, it's pull, so they log in, they can click on their My Leads, and they can see what leads they've bought. Whereas the paid version is push, kind of like a text message. You get alerted when a new lead comes in. But this also, it is not for Android. It is only for iPhone. This iPhone app was developed kind of long before, lots of people were, responsive design and everyone being doing everything on their phone now. So the system, if you do log in using your mobile device, it recognizes it as a mobile device, so either your iPad or your tablet or your Android or your iPhone. And it is responsive design, so it looks and formats nicely when you're viewing it on a smaller mobile device.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. So one was, can you grade buyers, tier 1, tier 2, et cetera, based on certain variables? Brett, will you think about the grading of buyers or the internal rating while I cover the next question, and how you would handle that. So the last question Skyped across is, if there is one source that is subjected to go to multiple buyers, how does that work? ? Does it do a round robin type of effect? So there are two primary logics for distributing leads in the ping post spaces. The first is based on best bid, and the second is on priority. So if you have quote-unquote best bid, the system will gather all of the pings, compare those against your static buyers, and sell it to whichever one is going to make you the most amount of money. Now, if you're selling leads non-exclusively and exclusively, we have something called scenarios, and that would allow you to compare the total revenue earned among the non-exclusive leads against your best exclusive buyer, and then sell it to whichever one is going to make, whatever combination is going to make you more money. So that is if it's best bid. If it is a priority distribution, then it looks to the priority settings. And so, Brett, if you could just jump into a filter set real quick to illustrate that. And so in that case, clients that are on the same priority will go into a round robin, where the client that has had the longest time since receiving the last lead receives the next lead. But if there is one buyer with a higher priority over others, they get first, quote-unquote, dibs.
Yep.
Hey,
so
Brett,
here
Scott, Richard here.
Hi, Richard.
Hey, I think I asked the question about grading buyers, and I think you're answering it for me. By being able to set priority, I think that would address the question for me.
Yep. So for each different filter set that you create, there's an option to have a priority. So now, as Scott mentioned, though, there's two different global system settings. Either the leads are going to route based on either the highest bidder, or they're going to route based on the priority. It has to be one or the other. So in the case that it is priority, you can set that individually in each different filter set. So how that works is, let's say a lead comes in, and you have 5 different buyers. They all take this state. They all take this criteria. How do we? And it's only supposed to sell once. How are we going to determine who's going to get that lead? It's based on that priority. Higher the priority, they're going to get that lead first every single time. And if it's the same priority, it goes round robin based on who hasn't gotten one longer. So you might
Awesome.
say, well, I have this buyer, I want them to get first dibs, but I don't want them to get every single lead. You would use this in combination with the daily and weekly and monthly limits. And this allows you to set caps at the filter set level, at their entire account level if you need to. So that way you can say, I want these first 5 leads to go to this account, but then once they reach that 5 cap limit, I don't want them to get any more, and I want them to go to someone else. So that allows you to then appropriately route your leads and send them to who you want to sell them to.
Awesome. Hey, I've got a question referring back to the iPhone app. When a buyer opens up a lead, does it trigger anything in the system so that you know that lead was opened or received?
No, it does not. However, unrelated to the iPhone app, whenever a lead comes in and matches someone, there's always a delivery method that's associated with it. By default, it's email. You can choose the email format and address and subject line. If they have their own custom CRM like Velocify or Salesforce or anything like that, they want the leads posted directly into, those can be set up as well. But with email, we do have the ability, once you log into the partner admin, you can see the time and the date as well as the IP address of when that email is opened.
Can you have multiple delivery methods?
Yes. So for each one, you can click on, choose the format, choose the email address, subject line's optional. You can then click the plus sign. So if you want different formats, go into different emails, different subject lines.
Cool.
But I will say this about, it reading it as the email opened. Obviously, that's not an exact science. People have email previews now where they can actually preview the email without actually opening it. So,
right.
There's, of course, those situations as well. So, it's something that's nice to be used when someone says, hey, I never got that email, and you can log in and say, well, yeah, you opened it at this time. So, in that situation, it's nice to have, but of course, it's not like written law where you have to trust that, maybe they did open it in a preview, but it doesn't show as opened. So,
correct.
However, also now what we do with every system is we require you to have your own SMTP info, and that's how the emails are sent out from the system. So your normal kind of like GoDaddy SMTP, if you have your domain hosted by GoDaddy, they have a pretty limited number of emails that can be sent out a day. So most people opt for like a third-party service such as SendGrid, and with SendGrid, you can log into the back end and you can see pretty much reports and activity for each email that's sent out, which ones hit spam, which ones hit, were unsubscribed by the receiver. So that's something that's definitely very valuable when you're delivering email leads as well.
Agreed. Do you? Here's another question I've gotten. Do you have any reporting for post rejects?
Post rejects? Can you just describe that a little? Yeah, we have.
Rejected.
Yeah, we have. Kind of a summary report coming and outgoing pings and posts. So you can see exactly how many pings came in from one particular vendor, how many posts came through after that, and you can see those type of numbers. But as far as individual like reasons for post rejects, no, we do not.
Okay.
I think that's a good example of a custom report, so something that we do a lot of for our clients. So if Brett clicks on Show All Reports, basically per each lead type, there's about 60 different standard reports, and then those typically account for a good portion of our clients' needs, but we can always build custom reports to your specifications, and then any report in your system can be made into a timed report. And so that would allow you to automatically email or FTP it on a periodic basis, so that you can have those sitting in your inbox for evaluation on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay,
so
Bob,
here we're looking at where you can...
Bob, can you hear me? Sorry, Scott, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, Scott, my question is when the lead is delivered, I mean, probably they get a mail with, the basic details of the lead, not the complete lead. Is there a way we can charge the consumer online before they get to see the complete lead, the end buyer?
So this ping post process is to allow them to bid on that lead. So typically there is no contact information that is passed through on the ping, except in certain scenarios like auto finance, in which case social security number is sent through encrypted. Have I misspoke yet, Brett? Brett is our expert on what exactly is ping typically by vertical, so sometimes I overstep my bounds there.
Not an issue.
Yeah.
We're talking about the home improvement vertical. So here we're talking about probably sending a zip code and some brief description of the project, and
zip
then
code and project type.
Yeah, and then the contractor who's getting the lead, he has the option to, as we discussed in the morning, the contractor either picks a lead or drops the lead or whatever. If he picks a lead, he should be charged online before he gets complete details of the lead. Is that doable?
This is that is outside of this ping post process, because the ping post process is done server to server in real time, and I think that's an important thing to notate here, is that oftentimes this is done in seconds. So it is not something that you can ping them and they would have the opportunity to manually bid on that particular lead. It is done by...
We are not talking about bidding. There's a fixed price per lead, and they pay a fixed price, and they are charged on the credit card, and once the charge goes through, then they get the complete details of the lead.
Right, so that was
so
the
in the system,
talked about.
Yeah, in the system, they have to have money in their account in order to get the lead. So either they've already put down an account balance via a credit card or some other method, a check or a wire, or wherever it may be. So they have to have money in their account within the system in order to be even eligible to bid on the lead.
Perfect. That works. Okay, great.
I love it.
All right.
And then one more last thing I wanted to say about the very last question here. If there's one source that's subjected to go to multiple buyers, with Ping Post, we do the pings in what we call like a shotgun. So the ping comes through, and we fire that out to the same time to every possible matching buyer. It's all done at the same time. It's not like we send it to one, wait for them, then send it to another, wait for them. We send it out to everyone at the same time, and then as they return back, we gather those and then sort them either based on the priority or based on that highest bid. So we do fire it out all at the same time, and then whoever's returning back a response, we capture that as it comes in.
Perfect. So what you're trying to say is we cannot control the number of people it will go to. It will go to all the matching people, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It will go to whoever's capable of taking that lead based on the information submitted in the ping. So in your situation, the zip code, the category. It's going to look, all right, who takes the zip code, who takes this category, who has money in their account, who's active. If they're eligible, it fires the ping out to them and either grabs the price from their filter set or grabs the price from their dynamic bid.
Perfect.
Any other questions from anyone else? Plymouth, I know you are in kind of a unique situation where you're buying on a ping post and routing them to yourselves. Do you have any other questions pertaining to this or something you want me to go over a little bit more?
Hello?
Hello? Yep. Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, let me ask you this. We've got a lead that went out and say nobody bid on it, right? And we want to wait 24 hours. Can we resubmit that ping again, or is this just a one-time? They filled out a lead, it pinged out, and it hits the floor, or can I recycle that ping again?
So for each lead type, there's always duplicate checks. On the ping, they're within a 10-minute period, and it's going to take in multiple fields since no contact information is set on the ping. So something like auto insurance, it's going to look at the SRC, where it came from, the zip code, the year, the make, the model, maybe some other fields. If that same exact criteria has come in the last 10 minutes, it's going to get rejected as a duplicate ping.
Is that across the system, Brett, or within our account?
That is across your entire system.
Okay.
Okay, I guess my question is we've had a scenario before. I've been on a ping post before, and we had a scenario say customer fills out an application, goes out, and nobody bought that lead that day or whatever. 24 hours later, we resubmit out the same lead again, and for whatever criteria or whatever, somebody buys it, and we had them on a 3-day sell-off before we considered that a dead lead. Is that something that it keeps repinging out until it is sold off, or is there a timed out and one day the lead just becomes a dead lead and we don't ping it out no more?
So if that lead's in your system and it's unmatched, meaning it didn't sell to anyone, there is and that full lead is in there. There is a reprocess icon. So for any leads you're looking to try to essentially resell or try to sell again, there's that reprocess icon. So clicking that will attempt it to then, and that will pretend like it's just coming into the system. It's going to check at that date and time who it can match to, how much it could sell for.
Is that something that can be automated, Brett?
Potentially, we could, depending on the rules, we could create what's called a cron job, which is something that takes the leads and, at a certain time of the day, it performs this action. So, we could potentially
I'm familiar with that.
Custom to pool all the leads in the last 24 hours that are unmatched and reprocess.
Does it go to the same set of people, or is it possible to only send it to probably new people who signed up? Is that possible?
Yes, that is a setting in the filter set, so you can check or uncheck whether or not they would be eligible for a reprocess.
No, my point is the lead has already gone, let's say, a day before to a whole set of people. My question is, let's say between yesterday and today, we have some new, contractors who signed in as the lead buyers. So is it possible that it goes to the new set of people and not a repeat mail going to the same set of people who got the mail yesterday?
Well, if they would have already gotten the lead yesterday, then they wouldn't be eligible to receive the lead, since the dupe rules would take over.
Perfect.
Right, but you could run into a scenario where maybe that potential buyer had a cap, where they hit their cap for that day, so they're not presented with that lead. But the following,
no, they wouldn't have gotten the lead though.
Okay. If they had hit their cap.
Right, exactly. So if they hit their cap, they would not have been pinged that lead because their filter set would not have been eligible to receive it.
Right. Okay. Where presumably the next day, if they're outside of whatever their cap limit is, they could be presented with that lead, even though they weren't presented that lead the previous day.
Correct. Only on only if you did a reprocess.
Right. Correct. Okay.
Everything is done in real time. So as soon as the lead hits the system, we try to sell it. And in that real time, we return back to whoever sent you the lead, whether you bought that lead or not. So on the ping, if you no one accepts the ping, you don't have that lead because they only send over the partial information in the ping. So if no one accepts that ping on your end, you're going to return back on the ping response back to the vendor unmatched. And that means they don't send the post, so you never get the name, you never get the phone number, you never get the email.
Right. Let me ask you this. So you kind of triggered a question. Let's say, for example, you've got, so we're in the automotive space and you've got other vendors that are also in the automotive space. Visitor comes to one of our websites. They fill out an application, and so on your system or your platform, maybe we're the first lead from Bob Smith. 15 minutes later, they go to a competitor's website that may be on your platform, and they fill out a finance app. So now Bob Smith has filled out a second application with another customer or vendor on the boberdoo platform. Does that lead get treated differently, or is it individual to each account that's running on the boberdoo platform?
So when the leads come into the system, there's a duplicate check on what we call the insert. So when the lead's making it in, we check certain fields, which are decided by you, to determine whether that lead's a duplicate or not. So for example, in auto finance, it's usually social security number, or maybe it's email, or maybe it's phone and email, or maybe it's social security number or email. Any of those combinations is chosen by you. We do see situations where people put the duplicate check to be the SRC plus the social security number. So in that situation you described, since it would be coming from two different places, it would have two different SRC values. One coming in from your form with SRC 123, another coming in from another form with source ABC. If that's the duplicate check, then that lead would make it into the system and not get rejected. If you just had the duplicate check be set on social security number and they went to one form and they filled it out and made it in, then they go to another one and they fill it out, it would not make it in and not show up at all because it would be same duplicate or same social security number submitted in X amount of days, and that X amount of days is chosen by you. It could be 1 day, it could be 30 days, it could be 1,000 days. That's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, I follow you there, but let's say it's another customer on the boberdoo platform that's in the automotive space, and you've got something, and I've seen this in the past where they'll go from one website to the next, filling out finance apps. And so what I'm asking is there a potential when you're pinging out to prospective buyers where there's some kind of a conflict where you've got customer A has the same identical lead that we might have? Does that create any type of conflict on your system or platform at all?
So this other customer that has the lead is a customer in your system, or you're just talking externally?
No. Yeah, externally, another boberdoo customer that's in the same space as we are, that ends up generating the same identical lead because you've got somebody hopping from one website to the next. Does that
All our
create any
client
type of...
systems are autonomous, so
Okay,
anything
perfect.
in somebody else's database wouldn't affect yours.
Right, okay.
It would
Or
only be in their
your
response if you were pinging them.
right, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Right.
I guess Richard, I guess the answer was we run into that quite a bit before where a customer will fill out 3 applications across the board and it would hit our system and we'd have 3 of the same social security number. And that's what we were making sure. If somebody was on an application, filled out an app on with we have the social and right one behind you and somebody else filled out a social, it doesn't cause a confusion in your system.
Yeah, because we don't know
it. Your new rules
Right.
come in.
Yeah,
Right,
we
because
wouldn't know that
we're
other system even
autonomous.
has
So
it.
Okay.
right, okay, perfect.
Nice. All right. Any other questions?
I guess my last one, Scott. I guess afterwards I'll call you and we can address a lot more of the singular questions I have.
Mhm.
I like what I've seen.
Good to hear. So yeah, Michael and Richard, I will give you guys a call after our demo here, or after we hang up here. Anybody else?
Scott, I'll also talk to you after this call, and we'll probably try to set up a demo with my IT guys around so that we can freeze on this probably tomorrow or whenever you.
Absolutely,
okay?
GP. I'll follow up with you as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you very much.
All right. So if there are no other
No
questions,
problem.
we'll bring this one to a close. We would greatly appreciate any feedback you have. So if there was things that were not covered on this demo, please feel free to shoot me an email or just go
So
on the
far
site.
so good. Whatever I've seen suits our requirement, we can definitely move forward. Okay.
All right. So thank you, everybody,
Okay, bye.
and we look forward to working with you all.
Okay. Bye.